The Alpha King ignored her until she was dying in his arms. The wolves of Thornvale howled when a king was born. They howled when a king died, and they howled, so the old women said, when the world was about to change forever. On the night Seren was dragged through the gates of the Iron Keep, the wolves did not howl. They were silent, and that silence, more than any prophecy, should have warned everyone of what was to come. She arrived in chains, not the heavy iron shackles reserved for criminals, but thin silver links, the kind they used on Omegas who had been sold. Her wrists were raw beneath them, the skin rubbed to a dull pink that would scar if no one tended to it. No one would tend to it. She knew that already. She had known it since the morning her village burned and the slavers pulled her from the wreckage of her father's bakery, still smelling of flour and ash and the rosemary bread that would never finish baking. Seren was 20 years old. She had hair the color of dark honey, and her eyes were the pale gray-green of river stones. She was beautiful in the way that inconvenient things are beautiful, the kind of beauty that made men possessive and women suspicious, and everyone, without exception, unkind. She had learned to keep her head down. She had learned to make herself small. But there are certain things that cannot be hidden, and the scent of an unbonded Omega was one of them. The Iron Keep rose before her like a fist of black stone punching through the earth. It was the seat of the Fenworth bloodline, the strongest Alpha dynasty the Northern Territories had known in 300 years. The current king, Calen Fenworth, had taken the throne at 19 after his father died in a border skirmish. He was 26 now, unmarried, unmated, and by all accounts utterly uninterested in changing either of those facts. The court whispered that he was waiting for a politically advantageous match. The servants whispered that he was incapable of love. The wolves that ran with him through the forest on moonless nights knew the truth, but wolves do not speak to men, and men rarely have the patience to listen. Seren was brought to the kitchens. This was the fate of most Omega captives who were not pretty enough for the bedchambers or clever enough for the libraries. They were put to work scrubbing pots, stoking fires, and feeding the 300 souls who called the Iron Keep home. The head cook was a beta woman named Margaret, thick-armed and sharp-tongued, who took one look at Seren's silver chains and said, "Another one. Can you peel a turnip without cutting your fingers off?" "Yes, ma'am." "Can you carry a pot of stew without dropping it?" "Yes, ma'am." "Can you keep your mouth shut and your eyes on your own business?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then we'll get along fine. The chains come off in the kitchen. I won't have silver near my food. It changes the taste of the broth. You'll sleep in the back pantry with the other girls. You'll eat after everyone else has eaten. And if any alpha in this keeps so much as looks at you sideways, you come to me before you go to anyone else. Understood?" Seren nodded. She did not cry. She had stopped crying 3 weeks ago, somewhere on the road between her burned village and this stone prison, and she suspected she might never cry again. The tears had simply run out. What replaced them was something quieter and harder, like a river that freezes from the bottom up. She worked. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Seren learned the rhythms of the Iron Keep the way a prisoner learns the pattern of the guards, not out of curiosity, but survival. She learned that the Alpha soldiers trained in the eastern courtyard every morning, and that their shouts carried through the kitchen walls like distant thunder. She learned that the council met on Mondays and Thursdays, and that on those days the king's mood was fouler than usual. She learned that the king himself ate alone in his chambers most evenings, and that the tray sent to him always came back barely touched. She learned too about the war. The Southern Territories, a loose alliance of pacts led by a warlord named Brennan Hask, had been pushing northward for 2 years. They burned villages, annexed farmland, and left a trail of displaced Omegas and shattered families in their wake. Seren's village had been one of dozens destroyed in their advance. The northern pacts, united under Calen's banner, were holding the line, but barely. Every week brought news of another skirmish, another loss, another village that existed only in memory. Seren's first glimpse of the king came on a Tuesday, 6 weeks after her arrival. She was carrying a basket of bread rolls from the kitchen to the great hall for the midday meal, when a door opened ahead of her and a man walked through it. She stopped. She could not help it. Every Omega instinct she possessed, every buried, suppressed, denied instinct, surged to the surface like a wave hitting a seawall. Calen Fenworth was tall. That was the first thing. Tall and broad-shouldered, with the kind of lean, predatory build that spoke of violence held in careful check. His hair was black, cut short at the sides and longer on top, and his jaw was sharp enough to cut glass. His eyes were the deep amber gold of a wolf's eyes, and they held the flat, assessing stillness of a man who had learned to evaluate threats before he evaluated people. He wore no crown, no jewels, nothing to mark him as king, except the way every person in the corridor instinctively stepped aside as he passed, and the way the air itself seemed to thicken around him, charged with the dense, commanding weight of an alpha's presence. He looked at Seren, through her, really, the way a man looks at a piece of furniture he passes every day without noticing. His amber eyes swept over her face for perhaps half a second, registered nothing of interest, and moved on. He continued walking. The door at the end of the corridor opened and closed behind him, and he was gone. Seren stood there, holding her basket of bread rolls, her heart hammering against her ribs so hard she could feel it in her teeth. Her hands were shaking, her skin was flushed, and somewhere deep in her chest, in the place where the bond mark would go if she ever received one, there was a pulling sensation, a thread being drawn taut between her body and the door through which he had disappeared. Mate. The word echoed through her like a bell struck in an empty cathedral. She shook her head. She shook it violently, as if she could dislodge the thought like water from her ear. No, no. She was a kitchen slave with silver scars on her wrists and ash in her history. He was the king of the Northern Territories, an alpha so powerful that his wolf form was said to be the size of a warhorse. There was no world in which those two facts connected. There was no story in which this ended well. She delivered the bread rolls. She went back to the kitchen. She peeled turnips until her hands were raw, and she did not think about amber eyes or the pulling sensation in her chest. She did not think about it at all. But the bond did not care what she thought. That was the cruelty of it. The biological machinery that connected Alpha to Omega operated on a level far below conscious thought, below decision, below dignity. It was chemical, cellular. It lived in the blood and the bone, and it did not ask permission. Over the following weeks, Seren became acutely aware of Kalen's proximity at all times. She could feel him, a low hum at the edge of her senses, like a distant melody played on a single string. When he was in the great hall 2 floors above, she knew it. When he rode out through the gates at dawn, the hum faded and the world became somehow quieter, grayer, less significant. When he returned at dusk, smelling of pine and horse sweat and the sharp metallic tang of the wolf lurking beneath his skin, the hum returned and everything inside her strained toward it. He never looked at her again, not once. She was invisible to him. Another body in a keep full of bodies. Another pair of hands scrubbing floors and carrying trays. She told herself this was a mercy. She told herself she was grateful. She almost believed it. The first sign that something was wrong came in the autumn, 3 months after Seren's arrival. The war took a turn. Brennan Hask, the southern warlord, had somehow acquired a weapon that the northern packs had believed was lost to history. Moonsbane, a poison derived from a flower that grew only in the deep mountain caves of the far west. Moonsbane was lethal to shifters. A single drop in a water supply could kill every alpha within a mile. It did not simply kill. It attacked the bond between the human form and the wolf, tearing them apart from the inside, leaving the victim trapped in a state of agonized half-transformation until their heart gave out. Kalen's scouts brought the news on a rainy evening, and the keep erupted into controlled chaos. Seren heard the shouting from the kitchen, heard the boots pounding through corridors, heard the deep resonant growl that could only have come from Kalen himself, a sound that vibrated through the stone walls and made every Omega in the keep flinch. Margaret locked the kitchen doors. "Stay inside," she ordered. "All of you. When alphas are frightened, they become dangerous, and a frightened alpha king is the most dangerous thing on earth." But the days that followed brought no violence, only a grim, grinding tension that settled over the keep like fog. Kalen called his council into session. Messengers rode out in every direction. Alliances were forged, strategies debated, supply lines redrawn. And through it all, Seren worked. She cooked, she cleaned, she peeled endless mountains of turnips and potatoes and carrots, and she listened. Servants hear everything. This is the great truth that every noble household forgets, and every servant exploits. Seren heard that the Moonsbane had already been used in 2 border towns, killing 47 alphas in a single night. She heard that Kalen had ordered his chemists to find an antidote, and that they had failed. She heard that the king had not slept in 4 days, that he was running patrols in his wolf form through the surrounding forests every night. pushing his body to the breaking point. And she heard something else, something that made her blood run cold. One of the counselors, a silver-haired beta named Lord Voss, had proposed a solution to the Moonsbane crisis. He had contacts in the western mountains, traders who knew the caves where the Moonsbane flower grew. He could negotiate a supply of the flower itself, from which an antidote might be derived. The price was steep, but not impossible. 3,000 gold marks and a shipment of iron ore. Kalen had agreed. The deal was struck. The flower would arrive in 6 weeks. But Seren, who had grown up foraging in the forests around her village, who had learned herb lore from her grandmother before the old woman died, who had spent years studying the properties of every plant, root, and flower that grew within 50 miles of her home, Seren knew something that Lord Voss apparently did not. The Moonsbane flower could not survive more than 3 days after being picked. Its properties degraded within hours of being separated from the root. By the time it arrived from the western mountains, it would be worthless. She stood in the kitchen, elbow deep in soapy water, turning this knowledge over in her mind like a stone. She could say nothing. She was a kitchen slave. Who would listen to her? Who would believe her? And even if they did, what difference would it make? She did not have an alternative. She did not have a solution. She had only the certainty that the current plan would fail, but people would die. Alphas would die, writhing and screaming as the poison tore their wolves from their bodies. People like the soldiers who trained in the courtyard every morning, whose laughter she could hear through the walls. People like Kalen, who rode out every night to keep his territory safe. If the antidote failed, there would be nothing between the Moonsbane and the entire Northern Alliance. It took her 3 days to gather her courage. 3 days of silent argument with herself. 3 days of weighing the risks. 3 days of imagining what would happen if she spoke and what would happen if she didn't. On the 4th day, she asked Margaret for permission to speak with Lord Voss. Margaret stared at her as if she had asked for permission to fly. "You want to speak to a counselor? You, an Omega kitchen girl?" "I have information," Seren said, "about the Moonsbane flower, about the plan to bring it from the west. It won't work. The flower degrades too quickly. By the time it arrives, it will be useless." Margaret's expression shifted from disbelief to something more careful, more assessing. "How do you know this?" "My grandmother was an herbalist. She taught me. The Moonsbane flower is one of the most volatile plants in the mountain ecosystems. It cannot survive separation from its root system for more than 72 hours. The active compound breaks down in sunlight and oxidizes in open air. Lord Voss's shipment will arrive as a box of dead petals." There was a long silence. Margaret wiped her hands on her apron, slowly, the way she did when she was thinking. "Wait here," she said. She was gone for an hour. When she returned, her face was pale. "Come with me," she said, "and for the love of all that's holy, do not say anything stupid." The council chamber was a large, cold room with a stone table at its center and maps covering every wall. 8 men sat around the table, 7 counselors and the king. Seren had never been this close to Kalen before. The bond pull hit her like a physical blow, and she stumbled on the threshold. Margaret caught her elbow and held her upright. Every head turned. Every alpha in the room registered her scent. Unbonded Omega, healthy, young. And Seren watched their nostrils flare, their eyes sharpen, their bodies shift with instinctive interest. Every alpha except one. Kalen glanced at her the same way he had in the corridor 3 months ago. A brief, disinterested sweep that cataloged and dismissed her in the same motion. "This is the girl," Margaret said, her voice steady despite the room full of alphas. "She has something to say about the Moonsbane plan." Lord Voss leaned back in his chair. He was a thin man with thin lips and the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "A kitchen Omega has something to say about matters of war and chemistry. How delightful." Seren swallowed. Her throat was dry. The bond was screaming at her, screaming that her mate was 10 feet away, that he was looking at her, that she should submit, that she should bare her neck, that she should do anything to make him notice her, want her, claim her. She ground her teeth and forced the instinct down like pushing a boulder into a well. "The Moonsbane flower degrades within 72 hours of separation from its root system," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. "The active compound, the one responsible for the poison and theoretically the antidote, is photosensitive and oxygen reactive. If you pick the flower and transport it across the mountains, by the time it reaches the keep, the compound will have broken down into inert material. You'll have spent 3,000 gold marks on a box of weeds." The silence that followed was absolute. Lord Voss's smile had frozen on his face. Two of the counselors exchanged glances. Another one leaned forward, frowning. "And how," Lord Voss said very softly, "does a kitchen slave come to possess such knowledge?" "My grandmother was Elspeth of Thornfield. She was one of the foremost herbalists in the eastern valleys before the southern raids destroyed our village. She taught me everything she knew before she died. I've studied the moonsbane flower in her journals. I've seen dried samples. I know its properties as well as I know my own name." "Elspeth of Thornfield," murmured one of the counselors, a heavy-set man with a graying beard. "I've heard that name. She supplied remedies to half the villages along the Moss River." Seren nodded. "She did. And she wrote extensively about the moonsbane flower specifically because it was so dangerous and so poorly understood. She believed that an antidote was possible, but only if the flower was processed at its source, in the caves where it grows, using water from the underground springs that feed its root system." Now Kalen spoke for the first time. His voice was deep and quiet, the kind of quiet that made people lean in to listen. "You're saying the antidote cannot be made here?" It was not a question, but Seren answered it anyway. "Not from transported flowers, no. The process would need to happen in the caves themselves, and it would need to be done by someone who understands the plant's chemistry, someone who can identify the correct strain, harvest it properly, and extract the compound before it degrades. Someone like you," Lord Voss said, and now his smile was gone entirely. Seren met his eyes. "Yes, someone like me." The council erupted. Voices overlapped. Objections, questions, accusations. Lord Voss called her a fraud. Another counselor called her brave. A third called her insane. Through it all, Kalen said nothing. He sat at the head of the table with his amber eyes fixed on Seren's face, and he said absolutely nothing. Then he raised one hand, and the room fell silent as if he had thrown a switch. "Leave us," he said. "All of you. Not her." The counselors filed out. Margaret squeezed Seren's arm once, hard, and followed them. The door closed, and then it was just the two of them, the Alpha King and the Omega Kitchen Girl, separated by 10 feet of cold stone floor and an ocean of silence. Kalen stood. He walked around the table with the fluid, predatory grace that marked him as a shifter, and he stopped 3 feet from where Seren stood. This close, she could see the flecks of darker gold in his amber eyes, the thin scar that traced his jawline from ear to chin, the tension in his shoulders that never fully relaxed. He smelled like pine smoke and winter air and something underneath that was purely, devastatingly alpha, a scent that made her knees weak and her pulse hammer. "You're either very brave or very foolish," he said. "I've been told the two are hard to distinguish, Your Grace." Something flickered in his eyes. Not amusement exactly, but its cousin. "Your grandmother's journals. Do you still have them? They burned with my village. Then everything you know is in your head." "Yes." He studied her for a long moment. She could feel the weight of his gaze like a physical thing, pressing against her skin. "The western caves are a 3-week journey through hostile territory. Brennan Hask controls the mountain passes. Anyone I sent would need a military escort, and I cannot spare the soldiers. A small group would be better," Seren said. 2 or 3 people traveling light, moving through the forest paths instead of the main roads. Hask's patrols watch the passes, but they don't patrol the deep woods. They're too afraid of the wild wolves. The deep woods are dangerous. So is Moonsbane. Another silence. Kalen's jaw tightened. She watched the muscle flex beneath the scar, watched him weigh options and outcomes and probabilities with the cold efficiency of a man who had been making life and death decisions since he was 19 years old. "I'll send 2 of my best scouts with you," he said. "You'll leave at dawn. If you're right about the flower, you'll produce the antidote at the source and bring it back. If you're wrong, I'm not wrong." His eyes narrowed. No one interrupted the king, but Seren had spent months peeling turnips and swallowing her voice, and something inside her, the frozen river, the hard thing that had replaced her tears, refused to be swallowed any longer. "Very well," Kalen said, and turned away. The audience was over. He walked back to the table, picked up a map, and began studying it as if she had already disappeared. She had been dismissed, as thoroughly and completely as if he had ordered her removed by guards. Seren left the council chamber. She walked back to the kitchen. She sat down on the stool beside the bread oven, and she pressed her hands against her face, and she did not cry. She did not cry because the tears were still frozen. But the pulling sensation in her chest was stronger than ever, a taut wire between her heart and the man who had looked at her, spoken to her, and still not seen her. He had not even asked her name. The journey began at dawn. Kalen sent his two best scouts, a pair of beta brothers named Joran and Thomas, lean and quiet and expert in woodcraft. They spoke little and watched everything, and they treated Seren with a gruff courtesy that she suspected had been ordered rather than offered. They carried weapons. She carried a leather satchel containing empty glass vials, a small copper still that Margaret had found in the keep's storeroom, and a notebook in which she had written everything she could remember from her grandmother's journals. The deep woods were exactly as dangerous as Kalen had warned. The trees grew so thick that sunlight reached the forest floor only in thin, scattered beams, and the undergrowth was a tangled mass of thorns and roots that made every step treacherous. Wild wolves, true wolves, not shifters, watched them from the shadows with yellow eyes. Joran and Thomas moved through this landscape with practiced ease. Seren struggled, fell, bled, and kept going. On the fourth night, they were attacked, not by Hask's soldiers, but by rogues, unmated alphas who had been driven from their packs for violence or madness, and who now roamed the deep woods in feral bands, more wolf than man. They struck at midnight, 3 of them, bursting from the undergrowth with yellow eyes and bared teeth. Joran killed the first with an arrow through the throat. Thomas fought the second with his short sword, taking a deep gash across his forearm before driving the blade into the rogue's chest. The third rogue came for Seren. He was enormous, easily 6.5 feet, half-shifted, with a wolf's jaw and claws and the crazed, unfocused eyes of someone who had lived too long without a pack or a purpose. He lunged for her, and Seren did something that she could not explain then and could not explain later. She stood her ground. The frozen river inside her, the thing that had replaced her tears, rose up and hardened into something immovable, and she looked at the rogue alpha and did not move. "No," she said, just the one word, but it came out charged with something, a resonance, a vibration, as if the word itself had weight and mass and force. The rogue stumbled. He actually stumbled, mid-lunge, as if he had hit an invisible wall. His eyes cleared for a fraction of a second, and in that fraction, Joran's second arrow found his heart. The brothers stared at Seren in the silence that followed. Tomas was bleeding freely from his arm, but he wasn't looking at his wound. He was looking at her. "What was that?" he asked. "I don't know," Seren said, and she didn't. But the frozen river inside her had shifted, and she could feel something new beneath the ice. Something warm, something ancient, something that had been sleeping for a very long time and had just barely cracked one eye open. They reached the western caves on the 14th day. The mountains rose around them like the walls of a vast natural cathedral, gray and white and streaked with veins of dark mineral. The cave entrance was narrow, barely wide enough for a person to pass through, and the air that flowed from it was cold and wet and smelled of stone and old earth and something else, something sweet and sharp that Seren recognized immediately: Moonsbane. The caves were extensive, a network of tunnels and chambers carved by underground rivers over millennia. Seren moved through them with a certainty that surprised her, as if some deeper sense was guiding her steps. She found the Moonsbane growing in a chamber deep within the mountain, clustered around a pool of water that glowed with a faint bluish luminescence. The flowers were beautiful, small, white, star-shaped, with petals that seemed to emit their own soft light. They were also deadly. Even the scent was enough to make Joran and Thomas dizzy, and Seren ordered them to wait in the outer chamber while she worked. The extraction process took 3 days. Seren worked alone in the glowing chamber, following her grandmother's instructions from memory, adjusting and improvising when her knowledge ran out. She harvested the flowers with bare hands. The Moonsbane did not affect omegas the same way it affected alphas and betas, a fact her grandmother had documented extensively. She distilled the active compound using the copper still and the cave water, filtering and concentrating it through repeated cycles until she had a small vial of clear opalescent liquid, the antidote. She tested it on a sample of the raw poison, a drop of sap from the Moonsbane stem. The antidote neutralized it instantly, turning the sap from toxic black to harmless gray. Seren held the vial up to the blue light of the cave pool and felt something she had not felt in a very long time: hope. But the journey home was where everything went wrong. They were 2 days from the Iron Keep when they walked into the ambush. Hask's soldiers, a full patrol of 20 men, had found their trail and followed it. Joran spotted them first, but by then it was too late. They were surrounded. "Give us the Omega," the patrol leader said. He was a squat, scarred alpha with the southern accent and the southern cruelty. "Our Lord Hask has use for unbonded Omegas. Give her to us, and you two can walk away." Jorin and Tomas drew their weapons. They were outnumbered 10 to 1, and they drew their weapons anyway, because they had been ordered to protect Seren, and they were the kind of men who kept their word. Seren admired them for it. She also knew it would get them killed. "Wait," she said. She stepped forward, past the brothers, past their drawn swords, into the space between the two groups. The patrol leader's eyes tracked her with predatory interest. "I'll come with you, but they go free, and this goes with them." She held up the leather satchel containing the antidote. "No," Joran said, his voice tight. "We have orders. Your orders were to get the antidote to the keep. That doesn't change. I'm not the mission. The vial is the mission. Take it to the king." Thomas looked at his brother. Joran looked at Seren. She could see the calculation in his eyes. The soldier's math. Lives weighed against objectives. Orders balanced against morality. "She's right," Tomas said quietly. "If we fight, we all die and the antidote is lost. If she goes with them, then at least the North has a chance." Seren finished. She unfastened the satchel and pressed it into Joran's hands. "There are 6 vials. Each one can treat 100 doses when diluted properly. The instructions are in the notebook. Give it to the king. Tell him." She paused. "Tell him what?" "Tell him that his kitchen Omega saved his kingdom. Tell him that she could feel the bond pull even now, even here, 2 days' ride from the keep, a golden thread still connecting her heart to his. Tell him it works. That's all he needs to know." The patrol leader was growing impatient. "Enough talking. Come, Omega." Seren walked toward the enemy soldiers with her head high and her spine straight, and the frozen river inside her so rigid it felt like it might shatter. Joran and Thomas watched her go. She did not look back because she knew that if she did, the ice would crack, and she was not ready for whatever waited beneath it. Hask's camp was a sprawling, muddy collection of tents and wooden structures in a valley 3 days south of the Iron Keep. Seren was brought before the warlord himself on the evening of her arrival. Brennan Hask was nothing like Kalen. Where Kalen was controlled, Hask was volatile. Where Kalen was silent, Hask was loud. He was a big man, barrel-chested, red-faced, with a beard that was more neglect than style, and his alpha presence was a blunt, oppressive thing that pressed down on everyone around him like a physical weight. He looked at Seren the way a man looks at a horse he's considering buying. "Unbonded Omega. Young, healthy, pretty. Where did you come from?" "The Iron Keep," the patrol leader said. "She was traveling with 2 of Fenworth's scouts." Hask's eyebrows rose. Was she? And what was Fenworth's Omega doing in the Western Mountains? Seren said nothing. She had decided, during the 3-day march to the camp, that she would give Hask nothing. No information, no cooperation, no fear. The antidote was safe. Joran and Thomas would deliver it. The North would survive. Whatever happened to her now was secondary. Hask studied her for a long time. Then he smiled, a slow, unpleasant smile that did not reach his eyes. "Put her with the others," he said. "We'll find a use for her." The others were 17 Omega women, kept in a long wooden building near the center of the camp. They ranged in age from 16 to 40, and they had been captured from villages across the northern territories over the past 2 years. They were not mistreated exactly. They were fed and sheltered, but they were prisoners, and their purpose was transparent. Hask used them as bargaining chips, as rewards for loyal soldiers, as breeding stock to strengthen his pack. The women survived by being invisible, compliant, useful. They had made an art of disappearing in plain sight. Seren fit in immediately. She had, after all, been practicing the same art for months. But something had changed during the journey to the caves and back. The frozen river inside her was no longer entirely frozen. Cracks had appeared, hairline fractures in the ice that let thin trickles of warmth seep through. The thing that had stirred in the deep woods, when she had stopped the rogue alpha with a single word, was stirring again. It was louder now, closer to the surface, and Seren was beginning to understand what it was. Her grandmother had told her once, when Seren was very young. "Some Omegas are born with more than the bond sense," the old woman had said, her gnarled hands sorting dried herbs with practiced efficiency. "They're born with the voice. It's rare, 1 in 10,000, maybe fewer. An Omega with the voice can compel any wolf." Alpha, beta, rogue, it doesn't matter. The voice reaches the wolf directly, bypasses the human mind entirely. It's the oldest power in our kind, older than the packs, older than the hierarchies. The wolves remember it even when the humans forget. Seren had thought it was a fairy tale. She was beginning to reconsider. She spent 5 weeks in Hask's camp. During that time, she learned his operation from the inside. The number of soldiers, the supply routes, the location of the Moonsbane stores. She memorized everything with the careful precision of someone who knows that information is the most dangerous weapon of all. And she waited. She did not know what she was waiting for. She only knew that the frozen river was thawing and that when it finally broke free, something significant was going to happen. It happened on a cold morning in late autumn, when word reached the camp that Kaelin Fenworth had ridden south with a force of 500 wolves. The camp erupted into chaos. Soldiers scrambled for weapons and armor. Hask roared orders from the center of the compound, his face mottled red with rage and something that might have been fear. The Omega women were locked in their building and told to stay silent. Seren pressed her ear to the wooden wall and listened. Kaelin had not come for territory. He had not come for a strategic advantage or a political negotiation. He had come because 2 beta scouts had returned to the Iron Keep with 6 vials of antidote, and a story about a kitchen Omega who had traded herself for the survival of the North. He had come for her, or so the rumors said, whispered between soldiers who didn't understand why their king would risk 500 wolves for a single Omega. But the rumors were wrong, or at least incomplete. Kaelin had come for Seren, yes, but he had also come to end the war. The antidote had changed the calculus. Hask's Moonsbane was no longer the unstoppable weapon it had been. The northern wolves could now fight without fear of the poison, and 500 wolves led by the most powerful alpha in 300 years were a force that no southern army could withstand. The battle lasted 4 hours. Seren did not see it. She heard it, the clash of steel, the howls of wolves, the screams of men. She pressed her hands against the wooden walls and felt the vibrations of the fighting through the grain. And she held the other Omega women close and told them it would be over soon. And she believed it, because she could feel Kaelin. The bond pull was blazing now, a golden fire in her chest that told her he was close, alive, fighting, bleeding. She could feel his rage like a furnace, his determination like a blade, and underneath it all, buried so deep that she wasn't sure he even knew it was there, a thread of something desperate and searching. A wolf, looking for something it had lost, looking for her. The building door burst open, but it was not Kaelin who stood in the doorway. It was Brennan Hask, wild-eyed, bleeding from a wound on his temple, half-shifted with claws where his fingers should have been. He had broken through his own lines. He was running, and he needed a hostage. His eyes found Seren. "You," he snarled. "Fenworth's Omega, you're coming with me." He lunged for her. Seren stepped forward to meet him, and this time, when the voice rose inside her, she did not push it down. She did not freeze it or bury it or deny it. She let it come. "Stop." The word left her mouth and hit Hask like a battering ram. He staggered. His half-shifted form wavered, the wolf and the man fighting for control. His claws retracted and extended, as if his body could not decide what shape it wanted to be. His eyes went wide, not with pain, but with something deeper, older, more primal. The wolf inside him was listening. "Kneel," Seren said, and Brennan Hask, warlord, alpha, conqueror of a dozen territories, knelt, his legs folded beneath him as if the tendons had been cut. His head bowed, his body shook. The wolf had obeyed, and the man had no choice but to follow. The other Omega women stared. Seren's heart was pounding so hard she could barely hear anything else. The power coursing through her was immense. A river unleashed, a dam broken, a force that had been building for 20 years, finally finding its channel. It was terrifying. It was magnificent. "Stay," she said, and he stayed. She walked out of the building into the aftermath of the battle. The camp was a ruin, tents torn, structures burning. The ground churned to mud by hooves and paws and boots. Northern soldiers moved through the wreckage, rounding up prisoners, tending to wounded. And in the center of it all, standing in his human form with blood on his hands and his black hair wild around his face, was Kaelin. He saw her. For the first time since that day in the corridor with the bread rolls, he actually saw her. Not through her, not past her, not the dismissive sweep and catalog of a king assessing his domain. He saw her, Seren, the woman, the Omega, the person, and his amber eyes went wide, and his body went still, and the bond between them, the golden thread that she had felt for months and he had apparently been ignoring or suppressing or denying, snapped taut like a wire pulled to its breaking point. She watched it hit him. She watched the realization crash through his defenses like a wave through a wall of sand. The recognition, the pull, the undeniable biological truth that he had been running from since the first moment she had walked into his keep. His wolf, which he held under iron control at all times, surged to the surface, and for one terrifying instant his eyes went full gold, and his bones shifted beneath his skin, and the Alpha King of the Northern Territories very nearly lost control of his transformation in front of 500 of his soldiers. He mastered himself, barely. His hands clenched at his sides, and his jaw locked, and Seren could see the effort it cost him. The raw physical struggle of forcing the wolf back down when every instinct demanded that he shift, that he run to her, that he claim what was his. Instead, he spoke. One word, just one. Name. She almost laughed. After everything, the kitchen, the cave, the antidote, the ambush, the captivity, the battle, the voice, he was asking her name. The one thing he had never bothered to learn. Seren, she said. My name is Seren. He nodded once as if this information required careful storage. Then he turned to his soldiers and said, Bring me Lord Hask. And when they found the warlord still kneeling in the Omega Women's Building, still held in place by an Omega's command, the war was effectively over. The march back to the Iron Keep took 5 days. Kaelin rode at the front of the column. Seren rode near the middle, on a horse provided by Joran, who had volunteered to stay beside her for the journey, and who looked at her now with an expression that was equal parts respect and bewilderment. Kaelin did not speak to her. He did not ride beside her, or send for her, or acknowledge her existence in any visible way. But the bond pull was different now, wider, deeper, a two-way current instead of the one-sided thread it had been. She could feel him feeling her. She could feel his awareness of her position in the column, her comfort, her safety. She could feel his wolf, pacing behind the bars of his self-control, desperate and furious, and half-mad, with a need that the man refused to express. He was afraid. Seren realized this on the 3rd day, and the realization hit her with the force of a revelation. The most powerful alpha in 300 years, the king who had faced war and poison and death without flinching, was afraid of her, of the bond, of what it meant and what it demanded, afraid of needing someone, afraid of being vulnerable, afraid perhaps of what had happened to his father, who had bonded with his mother and then lost her to illness and spent his remaining years as half a person. The severed bond, a wound that never healed. Seren understood fear. She had lived inside it for months. But she also understood something that Kaelin apparently did not. Fear and courage were not opposites. They were the same substance, viewed from different angles. And the river inside her, the one that had been frozen and was now flowing free, had no patience for a king who hid behind his crown. On the evening of the 4th day, she went to his tent. The guards outside exchanged uncertain glances but did not stop her. Perhaps they had heard about what she did to Hask. Perhaps they simply recognized the look on her face, the look of a woman who has survived capture in caves and combat, and is not about to be defeated by a canvas flap. Kaelin was standing over a table spread with maps, still in his riding clothes, still wearing the remote, controlled expression that he wore like armor. He looked up when she entered, and she saw the flicker, the quick, involuntary widening of his eyes, the tightening of his jaw, the almost imperceptible lean toward her before he caught himself and pulled back. You should not be here, he said. You should have come to me, she replied. Silence. The lamp on the table cast warm light across the maps and across Kaelin's face, softening the sharp lines of his jaw and deepening the shadows beneath his eyes. He looked exhausted. He looked like a man who had not slept properly in months. I know what I am to you, Seren said. I've known since the first day. I felt the bond the moment I saw you in that corridor. I've felt it every day since. I felt it while I peeled your turnips and scrubbed your floors and carried your bread. I felt it in the cave, and in Hask's camp, and in every moment in between. I have carried this bond alone for 5 months, and I am tired. So I am asking you, not as an Omega, not as a kitchen slave, not as anything except a woman who has earned the right to ask, why are you running from this? Kaelin stared at her. the control he was famous for, the iron discipline that held his wolf in check, that kept his court in order, that commanded 500 wolves into battle, cracked, just slightly, just enough for her to see the man underneath, the one who was not a king or an alpha or a legend, but a 26-year-old who had been carrying the weight of a kingdom since he was barely old enough to grow a beard. "Because it will destroy me," he said. His voice was raw, stripped of its usual authority. "The bond. If I let it in and then lose you, the way my father lost my mother, it will destroy me. And if I am destroyed, the North falls." "Your father's bond broke because your mother died," Seren said. "I'm not dying. I'm standing right here. You traded yourself to a warlord for 6 glass vials. You walked into enemy territory alone. You are exactly the kind of person who will get herself killed, and when I do, you'll survive it. Because that's what you do. You survive. But surviving is not the same as living, Kaelin. And you have not been living. You've been existing. You've been holding your breath for 7 years, waiting for the next loss, the next blow, the next reason to keep the walls up. And I am telling you, as someone who lost everything, her home, her family, her freedom, and survived, that the walls don't protect you. They just make the loneliness echo louder." His eyes closed. She watched his hands grip the edge of the table, knuckles white. She watched the wolf ripple beneath his skin, a visible tremor that ran from his shoulders to his fingertips. He was fighting it, still fighting it, even now. Seren crossed the space between them. She reached up and placed her palm against his chest, over his heart. She could feel it hammering beneath her hand, strong and fast and desperate, and she could feel the wolf just underneath, pressing against the inside of his ribs like an animal trying to break through a door. "Let go," she whispered. His eyes opened. Gold, full, blazing, unhuman gold. The wolf was at the surface, and the man was letting it come, and the expression on his face, the terror and the relief and the raw, overwhelming need, was the most human thing Seren had ever seen. He kissed her, or she kissed him. Later, neither of them could remember who moved first. It didn't matter. What mattered was the moment their lips met, the moment the bond, strained and suppressed and denied for 5 impossible months, finally completed its circuit. The golden thread became a golden chain, and the chain became a bridge, and across that bridge flowed everything they were, every fear, every hope, every wound, every strength. Seren felt his grief for his father, his terror of loss, his loneliness so profound it had its own gravity. He felt her frozen river and its thawing, her courage and her quiet fury, the voice that lived inside her like a second heartbeat. They stood there, foreheads together, breathing each other's air, and the world rearranged itself around them. Not dramatically, not with fireworks or celestial choirs, just a quiet, decisive click, like a key turning in a lock that had been waiting a very long time to be opened. But the story did not end with a kiss, because stories that matter never do. They returned to the Iron Keep to find it in crisis. Lord Voss, the silver-haired counselor who had proposed the failed Moonsbane plan, had not been idle during Kaelin's absence. He had used the king's departure as an opportunity, spreading whispered poison through the court. The king had abandoned his post for an Omega slave. The king had risked 500 wolves for a woman. The king was compromised, weakened, unfit to rule. The whispers had found fertile ground among the nobles who had always resented Kaelin's youth, his power, his refusal to marry strategically. On the morning after the army's return, Voss called for a formal challenge. It was his right under the old laws. Any counselor could challenge the king's fitness to rule, provided they named a champion to fight in their stead. Voss named his champion, his nephew, a young alpha named Declan Voss, who was 22 years old, 6'4", and had been training for exactly this moment his entire life. Kaelin received the challenge in the Great Hall, standing on the stone dais with the morning light falling through the narrow windows in sharp, angular beams. Seren stood beside him, not behind him, not in the crowd, but beside him on the dais, because she had walked into enemy camps and commanded warlords to kneel, and she was not going to stand in the back of the room while someone tried to take her mate's crown. "You are within your rights, Lord Voss," Kaelin said. His voice was calm. His face was calm. The wolf behind his eyes was anything but calm. "I accept the challenge. Tomorrow at dawn, in the eastern courtyard." Voss smiled his thin-lipped smile. "I look forward to it, Your Grace. I'm sure the court will be relieved to see this matter settled." After he left, Seren turned to Kaelin. "He's planned this for months. This isn't about you riding south. He was undermining you before I ever set foot in this keep. I know, Kalen said. His nephew is dangerous. The soldiers say he fights dirty. I know. Kalen. He looked at her, and for a moment the armor was down again, and she saw him, not the king, but the man. I have fought every battle that has come to me since I was 19 years old, he said. This is just one more. This is different. You have something to lose now. I've had something to lose since you walked into my council chamber and told me I was wasting 3,000 gold marks. A pause. I just didn't know it yet. The challenge fight took place at dawn the next morning, as tradition demanded. The eastern courtyard was packed. Soldiers, servants, nobles, and Omega women crowding every available space to watch. Seren stood at the front of the crowd, flanked by Margaret on one side and Joran on the other. Declan Voss entered the courtyard first. He was everything the rumors promised, tall, muscular, with the sharp features of the Voss bloodline, and eyes the color of cold steel. He carried no weapon. Challenges were fought in wolf form. Kalen entered second. He wore simple black clothing, and his face was the controlled mask that Seren had come to recognize as his battle mode. Everything unnecessary stripped away, everything soft locked behind iron doors, leaving only the predator. He too carried no weapon. They faced each other across 20 feet of cold stone. The court was silent. Kalen shifted first. It happened in the space between one heartbeat and the next. A ripple, a blur, a sound like tearing silk, and then there was no man standing on the stone. There was a wolf. He was enormous, shoulder height over 5 feet, with black fur that absorbed the dawn light like a void, and amber gold eyes that burned in his dark face like twin lanterns. The sheer size of him drew gasps from the crowd, even from those who had seen his wolf before. Power radiated from him in waves. Declan shifted a moment later. His wolf was gray and lean, slightly smaller but clearly fast, built for speed rather than brute force. He circled to the left, testing, probing, looking for an opening. The fight was brutal and short. Declan was quicker than expected, and he used his speed to land the first strike. A slashing bite across Kalen's flank that drew blood and sent a gasp rippling through the crowd. But speed was all he had. Kalen absorbed the blow, pivoted with a grace that seemed impossible for an animal his size, and countered with a strike of his own, a shoulder charge that caught Declan in the ribs and sent him tumbling across the courtyard. Before the gray wolf could regain his footing, Kalen was on him, jaws closed around his throat, pressing him into the stone with the implacable, crushing weight of an alpha in his prime. Declan went limp. Submission. The fight was over, but Kalen did not release him. His jaws stayed clamped around the gray wolf's throat, and a deep rumbling growl filled the courtyard. A sound that was not a warning, but a question, a demand. Yield permanently, or die. Those were the options the growl offered, and everyone in the courtyard understood them. Lord Voss went pale. Declan yielded. Fully, completely, irrevocably. The kind of yield that could not be taken back, that rewrote the hierarchy of the pack at the most fundamental level. Kalen released him and stepped back, blood dripping from his flank, his amber eyes sweeping the courtyard with a look that dared anyone else to question his fitness to rule. No one did. He shifted back to his human form, standing in the center of the courtyard with the dawn light painting him in gold and red. He was bleeding from the wound on his side, and he was breathing hard. And he was magnificent. His eyes found Seren in the crowd. And then, in front of his entire court, every noble, every soldier, every servant, the Alpha King of the Northern Territories walked to the Omega kitchen girl, took her face in his bloodied hands, and kissed her. The court erupted. Cheers, gasps, objections. It didn't matter. Kalen had made his choice, and he had made it publicly. And no challenge or conspiracy or whispered poison could undo what the entire keep had just witnessed. Lord Voss was arrested that afternoon. Under interrogation, he confessed to more than just the challenge. He had been feeding information to Brennan Hask for 2 years, providing intelligence on troop movements, supply lines, and defensive positions. The failed Moonsbane plan had not been incompetence. It had been sabotage. Voss had known the flower would degrade. He had counted on the antidote failing. He had bet on the North falling, and he had intended to be on the winning side when it did. Seren felt nothing when she heard the confession. Nothing except a cold, clear understanding that she had been right. Right to speak up, right to go to the caves, right to trade herself for the antidote. Every choice she had made, every risk she had taken, every moment of fear and pain and loneliness had led to this. A traitor exposed, a war ended, a kingdom saved. And yet, the hardest part was still to come. The bonding ceremony took place 2 weeks later, on the night of the winter solstice. It was a full moon, a coincidence that the elders declared auspicious and that Seren suspected was just good scheduling. The ceremony was held in the Great Hall, lit by 1,000 candles, attended by the full court and representatives from every northern pack. Seren wore white, Kaelin wore black. They stood facing each other in the center of the hall, and the elder who performed the ceremony spoke the old words in the old language. And when it was time for the bonding mark, the bite on the neck that sealed the connection between Alpha and Omega permanently, Kaelin's hands were shaking. Seren took those shaking hands in hers and held them steady. "I'm right here," she whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." He bit her, and the bond completed, and the world exploded with golden light that only the two of them could see. Seren gasped. The sensation was beyond anything she had imagined. A fullness, a rightness, a sense of finally being complete that made every moment before this feel like a rough draft of a life she was only now beginning to write in ink. She could feel him, not just his presence, not just his proximity, but him, his thoughts, his emotions, his memories, his fears. She felt the boy who had watched his father waste away after his mother's death. She felt the 19-year-old who had taken a crown he didn't want because there was no one else to take it. She felt the king who had suppressed his wolf for years because he believed that needing someone was the same as being weak. And she felt the man who was standing in front of her now, terrified and hopeful, and so full of love that it had nowhere to go except into her, through the bond, a flood of warmth that melted the last remaining ice in Serene's frozen river and turned it into something alive and flowing and free. "I should have seen you," he said, his forehead against hers, his voice rough. "That first day, I should have seen you. You see me now," she said. "I see you now." And in the great hall of the Iron Keep, surrounded by 1,000 candles and a court full of wolves, the Alpha King and the Omega who had saved his kingdom began, at last, to live. But Seren was not merely a queen to sit beside a king and smile. In the months that followed, she reshaped the Iron Keep and the North in ways that no one had anticipated. She established an herbalist's guild, training omegas and betas in the medicinal arts that her grandmother had passed to her. She reformed the treatment of captured omegas, abolishing the silver chains and the forced servitude that had been standard practice for generations. She set up a network of healers across the northern territories, stockpiling the Moonsbane antidote in every major settlement. And she continued to develop her voice. The power grew stronger with use. She could calm a raging alpha with a word, settle a dispute between wolves with a sentence, and command obedience from any shifter within earshot. She used it sparingly and wisely, understanding that power exercised too freely becomes tyranny. But its existence, the mere knowledge that the Queen of the North carried the voice, changed the political landscape permanently. No alpha would challenge the throne while Seren stood beside it. No warlord would rise while she could bring them to their knees with a word. Kaelin, for his part, learned to let go, not of his strength or his discipline. The North still needed both, but of the fear that had kept him caged for years. He learned to sleep with Seren curled against his side and not wake in terror that she would be gone. He learned to argue with her, and she argued often about policy and strategy and the proper seasoning for winter stew, without mistaking disagreement for abandonment. He learned that the bond his father had lost was not a vulnerability but a source of power, and that two people connected at the deepest level of their being could weather storms that would destroy either one alone. On a spring evening, 6 months after the bonding ceremony, Seren stood on the battlements of the Iron Keep and looked out over the northern territories. The fields were green, the villages were rebuilding, the wolves were at peace. Below in the courtyard she could hear soldiers training and servants laughing and the distant sound of Margaret shouting at someone about turnips. Kaelin appeared beside her. He leaned against the stone wall and looked at her the way he had learned to look at her, as if she were the most remarkable thing he had ever seen, and as if he could not quite believe she was real. "The scouts report that the western passes are clear," he said. "Trade routes are reopening. The harvest projections are strong. Good. The council wants to discuss the southern territories. Hask's lands need governance. Also good. We can address it tomorrow." And the Healers Guild has sent word that they've successfully synthesized a shelf-stable version of the antidote. It can be stored for up to 2 years without losing potency. Seren turned to him, her eyes wide. 2 years? From a compound that degrades in 3 days? Your apprentices are very motivated. Apparently their teacher set a high standard. She smiled, a real, full smile, the kind that crinkled her gray-green eyes and made her look for a moment like the girl she had been before the fire and the chains and the caves. My grandmother would have been proud. Your grandmother would have been terrified. You've built something she never imagined. Seren looked back out at the green fields and the distant mountains and the sky that was turning gold with the setting sun. She could feel the bond humming between them. Not the desperate one-sided pull of the early days, but a steady warm resonance, like 2 instruments perfectly in tune. Kalen. Yes? She took his hand. I need to tell you something. He went still, not with fear. The fear was largely gone now, replaced by something sturdier, but with attention. What is it? I'm pregnant. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of everything he could not say, and everything he did not need to say, because the bond said it for him. Joy, terror, wonder, hope, the whole catastrophic, glorious mess of human emotion, flowing through the golden thread between them like water through a newly opened channel. His hand tightened on hers. His amber eyes were bright, brighter than she had ever seen them, bright with something that looked very much like tears in a man who had not cried since he was 19 years old. A child, he said. A child. He pulled her into his arms, gently, as if she were made of something precious and breakable, which she was not and had never been, but which she allowed because there are moments when even the strongest people deserve to be held, like they are the most important thing in the world. Below them, in the forests surrounding the Iron Keep, the wolves began to howl. 1 voice first, then 2, then a dozen, then 100, a rising chorus that filled the valley and echoed off the mountains and climbed into the golden sky. They howled because a new life was coming. They howled because the world was changing. They howled because, after a long and terrible silence, there was finally something worth singing about. And Seren, standing in the arms of the king who had ignored her and then needed her and then loved her, listened to the wolves and felt, for the first time since the morning her village burned, that she was home. The wolves of Thornvale howled when a king was born. They howled when a king died. And they howled, the old women said, when the world changed forever. On this night, they howled for all 3. The end.